Hello wise woman, welcome to my channel. I am Wanga and this is Woman Wellness, a place for every woman who wants to take back control of her life, understand her body and heal herself naturally. And if this is your first time joining, then welcome. If not, welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing about sugar and its impact on your hormones. So let me first define which sugar I'm referring to. I'm not talking about the sugar that's in your fruit and vegetables. I'm speaking about processed and refined sugar. So that's table sugar, sugar that's in your fruit juices, store-bought fruit juices, sugar in canned foods, in pastries, breads, cakes, all of that, in soft drinks and alcohol. Alcohol is liquid sugar, by the way. That's the type of sugar I'm talking about. Not sugar that is in fruit and vegetables that is bound to fiber. I'm talking about processed, isolated, refined sugar. It's also in some health foods, and that's why you'll find that some people, or you've probably experienced it, that you've gone out, you've bought all these health foods to try and lose weight, and you haven't. That's because there's hidden sugar in it. But I'll get to that towards the end of the video. What does sugar do to your body? Insulin is a hormone that helps regulate blood sugar levels. Now, when we take in sugar, insulin is pumped out to regulate our blood sugar, and it moves that sugar into the cells or wherever it needs to be put. But what happens when we constantly eat refined sugar, processed sugar, high carb foods? The sugar spikes our insulin. Insulin is pumped and pumped out and pumped out to regulate this. The more we pump out insulin, the less sensitive we become to the signal to regulate blood sugar. And that will affect our muscles, our fat cells, and our liver, because we've lost that sensitivity to insulin. And that is what is called insulin resistance. Now, what are the effects of eating too much sugar, whether it's table sugar or anything, like all the foods that I've mentioned? Well, one, we know that if you want to lose weight, you've got to cut sugar. So we know that sugar contributes to weight gain. Acne, skin, particularly the skin is very sensitive to sugar, especially if you have hormone imbalance conditions or underlying conditions of hormonal imbalance. You know that you have to cut off sugar because it's going to exacerbate your hormone imbalance and your skin issues, especially if you're having hormonal acne or if you're having acne on your forehead. That's digestive distress. So that's an indicator that you have sensitivity in those areas. So you definitely want to cut off sugar because it's going to show up over your forehead and on your chin. And that's how you'll know that it's hormonal and digestive. And once you start to eliminate sugar, you will start to see your skin improve. The other thing to note is that sugar has no nutritional value at all. In fact, it only causes inflammation in the body, and we know that inflammation is bad. Chronic inflammation is bad, and sugar just does that. So it makes joint pain worse. It makes just muscle aches. It just makes everything feel worse. If you go on a sugar-free diet for 21 days, all the pain, especially that you feel when you wake up, like your joints are stiff, your muscles are sore, you just feel like, I'm in pain, I'm tired. Just cutting out sugar will improve your muscle and joint health, just that alone. Sugar also burdens your liver. We can't afford sugar to burden your liver because your liver is very important for your hormone health. So by cutting off sugar, you're also lifting the burden off your liver so that it can do the important processes like metabolizing your hormones and balancing out your hormones. Another thing, sugar contributes to vaginal dryness. If you have issues with lubrication, if you have any vaginal health issues, so recurrent infections, irritability, anything that goes on down there, odor, discharge, sugar makes those things worse. So if you're having recurrent UTIs and anything like that, sugar is one of those things that you want to take out, especially in terms of lubrication. It makes things drier. You'd think, sweet, but no. It makes things drier, and then it can lead to vaginal tears and sores as well. Now, what does sugar do specifically to our hormones? Well, firstly, high levels of insulin drive high levels of testosterone. So the more insulin you're having to put out, the more testosterone you're going to produce. Now, that's a problem, especially for women with PCOS. When you look at women with PCOS, high levels of testosterone will affect ovulation. But more importantly, high levels of insulin affect the function of your ovaries. So high insulin equals high testosterone equals trouble with ovulation, and your menstrual cycle in general. So women with PCOS, or women who have a history of metabolic disease in their family, history of high cholesterol, history of diabetes, need to cut out or cut down processed and refined sugar. So if you already have PCOS, another reason why you need to cut out sugar is because then it can also contribute to hirsutism, which is abnormal hair growth, like on the chin, on the chest, on the belly, or it can contribute to hair loss, like you see here. So high levels of sugar affect your ovaries, which is affecting your testosterone levels and estrogen levels. It's also affecting your ability to ovulate normally. So if you're trying to conceive, then sugar is also an enemy for you right now. Estrogen helps to optimize the utilization of insulin. But if you have hormonal imbalance, if you have low estrogen or excessively high estrogen, that means your insulin is also not being properly regulated. So you can see that there's a connection between our sex hormones and insulin. The other thing that also happens is that testosterone gets converted to estrogen via a process called aromatization. So the more sugar you take, the more insulin you pump out. The more insulin you pump out, the more testosterone you pump out. The more testosterone you pump out, the more it's converted to estrogen. So you end up having a complete dysregulation of your sex hormones. Your thyroid is also connected to your womb health. So if you have an underlying thyroid disease, you're not going to regulate sugar very well, so you're going to have abnormal insulin levels, which can throw off your hormone balance. So if you have thyroid disease, hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, your insulin levels will be dysregulated. And equally, if you have abnormal insulin levels, they will also affect your thyroid. That's why it's important that when you're having hormone imbalance, your doctor not only tests for, your sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, all those hormones, but they also check your thyroid panel, because they need to have a full picture of what's going on with you hormonally and metabolically. And so now let's get to the fun part. How do you reduce sugar? How do you regulate your hormones? How do you reverse the damage that sugar has caused in your body? And how do you start to balance your hormones through diet? The first and most potent way to start reversing the effects of too much sugar and start increasing your insulin sensitivity is to have a protein, fat, and fiber breakfast. You can have lunch and dinner as well, but breakfast is the most important when it comes to this. So you want a good source of good protein, low fat protein, and then you want a good source of fats, healthy fats, and then fiber. I've spoken about all these three before in previous videos. I will link it up here somewhere, and then I'll also link it down below. You want to eat whole grains. So you don't want to eat white mielie meal, because no nutritional value there. It's just spiking your insulin. The moment they start powdering them and making them into flours, it's refining, it's processing, you're losing nutritional value, you're losing the fiber that holds that sugar so that you're not spiking your insulin. You want to avoid caffeine and alcohol, because cortisol, which is your stress hormone, also can dysregulate your insulin response. So taking out foods that cause inflammation or spike cortisol are also important, like caffeine and alcohol. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, a lot of the research that has been done on intermittent fasting is based on men. We are not little men. We don't have the same hormonal picture as men, so we can't fast like men. There is a time and a place for when you should be fasting. As a woman, at different stages of your cycle, it works, but not throughout your cycle. So intermittent fasting, or just going hungry. The worst thing that you can do for your hormones is to go hungry. I'm sure you've realized that if you've been having weight issues or hormone issues, and you try to lose weight by starving yourself, by skipping meals, you actually end up gaining more weight. And that's because your hormones are unbalanced. So you're actually not giving your hormones what they need. I did a video that talks about what to eat in each stage of your cycle. I'll link it down below, and I'll link the downloadable food chart for you that will guide you through how to eat for each stage of your cycle. And then in the video, I also share about when banting, for example, when a low carb, high fat diet is good. So you can have a look at that. So you're eating protein, fat, and fiber breakfast. You're eating whole grains and taking out the high carb processed foods. You're avoiding caffeine and alcohol and any cortisol and spiking food. You're avoiding starving yourself. But we can't deny that you're not having cravings. Obviously, we all do. Whenever we cut out sugar, that is the time when we really want to eat sugar. The moment you decide, I'm going to cut this out, it's like now suddenly all the cravings come back, even though you weren't eating that food before. So how do you curb that craving, but also regulate your insulin response? So we have a product called Vitality, and it's an adaptogen blend. It helps basically, as the word suggests, adapt. That's particularly to help you buffer that stress. In particular, it will help regulate your insulin, but it also helps curb those sugar cravings. And then it helps with cortisol regulation. These are the two factors that drive cravings. So Vitality is really good at regulating your metabolism, but also regulating your insulin and cortisol. The second one is Harmony hormone support. So it helps to balance your hormones, in particular regulate that estrogen, regulate progesterone, regulate your sex hormones, but it also helps to unburden your liver. So when you're doing all the dietary changes, by using Vitality and Harmony, you're also helping to regulate your hormones and unburden your liver. And your liver will love you for this because you're detoxing it and you're also helping it metabolize those hormones like estrogen. Now the plug. Meal prepping. Meal prepping, I think, is where a lot of us fall off. Like, okay, so I know all the stuff I'm supposed to eat, but I don't even know where to start. Like, when do I eat this and when do I eat that? Where do I get this and whatnot? So I created a downloadable food chart for you that tells you what to eat and which phase of your cycle. So in phase 1, during menstruation, what are the best foods for you to eat? In follicular phase, what are the best foods to eat? In ovulation, what are the best foods to eat? That way, when you're doing your groceries, you know exactly what you need to buy. That means you're not wasting food, because you know how we just go like, oh, starting Monday, I'm losing this weight, I'm doing this thing, I'm balancing my hormones, and then we go and buy all this food and then it goes to waste because we only ate like a quarter of it and then got rid of the rest. That is a waste. So the food chart helps you stay structured in what you're eating. You know that for this week, for these next 10 days, these are the foods I need to focus on. And so you buy accordingly, making it a cheaper way to eat and also making it a zero waste environment. If you want to balance your hormones and if you want to lose weight, stay away from low-fat foods. Yes, low-fat. I'm talking about low-fat store-bought foods. I'm not talking about like just a fruit or vegetable that's low in fat. I'm talking about all these foods that are being marketed as low-fat. Because guess what? When they take the fat out, they put in sugar. That's why you'll find that, hey, I've been eating low-fat foods, but I'm not losing weight, because they put in sugar to replace the fat. So sugar is a replacement for fat in low-fat foods, and that's why we gain weight. So it's a scam. Don't fall for it. And so that's it for today, and I hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you know when I post. And of course, share the video. Share it with another woman that you believe is going to benefit from this, and let's go on this healing journey together. Until next time, take care and be well.